It is unfortunate you are on the wrong side.
I was just thinking the same about you. However, just because we're on opposite sides doesn't mean I cannot teach you.
Okay, for me, the entire 3-part episode of Xiaolin Showdown is probably its peak. There is nothing more memorable than realizing the main character of your favorite TV show turns out to be evil. I mean, it was a big deal when Raimundo did it, but the fact that Omi's doing it is like a major shock. It's just not like him, especially the character we've grown to accept. I remember seeing the promos on TV and just being so excited to see what this could have been. This is definitive Xiaolin Showdown. If you don't like these episodes, you don't like the show, and I'm completely okay with that.
Sometimes our destiny is determined by events that are out of our control.
Xiaolin Showdown has always been good at balancing heart and comedy. A lot of the times their themes reflect acceptance, teamwork. It represents a lot of really positive things. And there's always a point in those TV shows where things take a really intense turn. At least in all the good TV shows I've seen. In the first season of Xiaolin Showdown, basically it was a lot of playful, adventurous episodes about 4 young monks trying to get Shen Gong Wu, and then we started getting really serious at this 2-part finale. Like Fairly Odd Parents when they did the Channel Chaser special. I mean, oh my gosh, that was so dramatic having future Timmy see regular Timmy, and it was just such a departure from the original premise of the show, but in a good way, you know? See, since this is such an old show, I'm already just gonna assume that you guys have seen this, so spoilers ahead. Now, the episodes I'm talking about of Xiaolin Showdown are a 3-part episode. It's Season 2, Episode 25, 26, and Season 3, Episode 1. Yeah. This bled into a whole new season. In the first season, they actually had a 2-part finale and then a 2-part season premiere, all continuing the same plot line. And that was about Raimundo's turning to the dark side, bringing Wuya back to her human form. And I would say it's the first time it actually got, like, serious.
Isn't it?
We're gonna start by breaking down the first 2 episodes, which are the most pivotal in this 3-part special. Then before we get to the 3rd season, I actually want to reflect on everything that led up to this really intense moment from Season 2.
Master Feng announces to the young monks that he is soon going to be making a decision about who will be rising to Wudai Warrior, and it's kind of assumed that it's going to be a chosen one. Each of the monks are convinced it's them, and it's really funny.
Maybe it's me. But you are a girl.
So the monks all assume it's them. Sorry, Clay, I just don't feel like you're standing out so far in the show to deserve this title yet. Each of the Xiaolin monks then start to bribe Dojo. Everybody's basically insinuating that they're the ones who got it, and Dojo basically doesn't know how to say no, so he gives in to everybody. Such a wholesome, like, sitcom trope to get everybody going after the same goal, and just seeing how each individual character kind of tries to do this is always funny. The monks hear about the Yin Yo-Yo, which allows its user to access a portal to the yin-yang world. We don't really know that much about it though, and it's mysteriously missing in the scroll. Dojo refuses to go with the monks because he doesn't want to be badgered about the ranking up issue. It's so cute to see the monks be against each other like this, especially rewatching, knowing how the entire 3-part episode's going to go. It's fun to see how playful they are leading up to the serious moments. Like, everything feels a lot more earned.
It will be good experience for those who did not make Wudai Warrior to work with a Wudai Warrior.
Glad you say it that way.
Omi, if he didn't have an ego already, is so disrespectful in here to the other monks. Like, I don't know how people get away with this. This is like if somebody like didn't have social skills, which I guess he's a monk in a Shaolin temple. I don't know how good his social skills are. We end the first act break with Chase Young revealing the reason he's been keeping an eye on Omi, essentially, is because he is convinced Omi will one day grow up to be able to kill, destroy. I don't know. Cartoons of the 2000s were very vague, and they tried to be serious, but they were also just like not quite getting it. Not only do the monks show up for the Yin Yo-Yo, but Jack and all of the former villains from this season kind of come with him. And surprisingly, Jack ends up getting away with the yo-yo. We see a moment where Chase Young actually switches the Yin Yo-Yo with a fake Yin Yo-Yo, and the seed is planted. Suddenly all the monks are mad at each other and Dojo for the false information about who was going to be the next Wudai Warrior. Dude, poor Dojo though. These kids really projected onto him and they're so angry. Then we see that Chase Young is at the temple. I've never seen Chase Young at the temple. Suddenly Dojo and all the monks are brutally hurt and on the floor. Like, what just happened? Even Dojo's Dojo bot, which is really annoying, is slit at the throat. They notice none of the Shen Gong Wu are missing, but something's off. And then they find out that Master Feng is gone missing. And if you've seen every episode over and over again up until this point, Master Feng has never been that integrated into the plot. So this is a really big deal. And the story really begins right here.
He's left us for the yin-yang world.
When Raimundo recalls something that happened a couple episodes earlier where spiders were attacking the Earth and Omi and Chase Young had to work together to stop them essentially, and they really bonded, and there's a little weird energy between the superhero and the supervillain, especially considering they're all on the hunt for Shen Gong Wu. But Raimundo's basically saying like, Omi, we need that information, like tell us what Chase said. And Omi is like, okay, I can't tell you what he said because that would betray my trust as a Shaolin monk. He even says something like really inspirational, like lying is what separates good from evil. And I'm like, dang, Omi, that is so true.
Honor is what separates us from evil.
It brings me to this feeling that maybe Omi defines being good as their beliefs. Like when kid shows talk about good and evil, it's just so black and white. It's like ruling the world, not ruling a world, having power, not having power. But this is when we kind of break that tension and talk about how there's a separation with humans between their beliefs and their actions. This episode is a clear example of how the monks know they're good. They believe they're good. They fight for quote-unquote good. Therefore, they have good energy. They have good chi. Meanwhile, the people with bad intentions or want to rule the world by themselves are considered evil, selfish. They represent all the traits that are negative. If you compare it to religion, it's like, just imagine like this person believes in God and this person believes in the devil, and they just don't get along because those are fundamental truths about their distance between each other. Essentially, that Raimundo is accusing him of doing something that is quote-unquote evil. Omi does not want to lie. Omi wants to keep his promise as a Shaolin warrior to Chase Young because that's the right thing to do. He's a good person. He is a hero. Raimundo wants to save Master Feng, which is super fair, and going to ask Omi to do this thing that is not inherently evil, but it's a bad thing to do. It's a selfish act. Therefore, it's kind of an evil act. An evil act is also a good reference to Raimundo in the first season when he turned against the Shaolin monks because he was feeling mistreated. It was essentially him being selfish. And the show is like explaining that that is a bad thing to do. Then we see a shot of Omi across from the monks, blocked by this beautiful ceiling. This is like art, guys. Like, I just want to take a second to look at this. This is moments that remind me that cartoons are actually beautiful, beautiful art, especially since they're telling such a good story through just this image alone, like Omi's separation, his shadow, and having all of his friends being just so distant from him. It's perfect for the mood. Is the argument's not even resolved by the end. Omi takes things into his own hands and is basically like, I'm just gonna go get the yin yo-yo. Like, we're gonna face this problem head on. We don't need to strategize. And this is where Omi's kind of acting out a little bit. The part that's kind of weird to me is like Jack doesn't really have a motivation for wanting the yin yo-yo anyway, so it's kind of random to me that he was so excited to get it. Although, I mean, I know he's usually getting Shen Gong Wu, but I just feels like this is a really important Shen Gong Wu. Like, everybody should care where it's going to end up. While Omi's at Jack's, he learns that the villains are actually plotting together to take over the temple. He uses the changing chopsticks to shrink into the toilet, and then the gills of Hamachi to swim away. And it's one of those moments where it's just so cool, these Shen Gong Wu. The concept is just really fun. Like, just for moments like this, like, can you imagine if you were able to do that? He really quickly has to get back and warn the others. Omi returns to the temple only to find out that he is too late. Dojo's there, and he's like, basically, Jack is ruling so much more than he ever has. And it's interesting because the monks think Jack have Master Feng, Jack Spicer is just trying to get all their Shen Gong Wu, and Chase Young has just been coming back and forth in small spurts, but we don't really know why. Omi realizes the only way to help his friends is to get help from Chase Young, and then we're, you know, like, Chase Young is somebody who is a bad person, who is considered evil, but his actions are good. Meanwhile, Omi is somebody who's good and likes to keep his actions good. That's why when Omi and Raimundo fought, it's like, Omi and Raimundo are both good, but it seems like actions-wise, Raimundo was doing a selfish deed in that moment. And we kind of respect Omi because he's so loyal to this deal he made with somebody he doesn't know super well. Although I would be insulted if I was like your close friend and you just randomly listen to this adult that I don't even know. I mean, how old is Omi? Like 10? Omi comes to Chase Young, who knows exactly what Omi needs immediately. It's so funny how charismatic Chase Young is, because he's just wiping his lips and he is not even afraid to tell Omi he knows exactly what he's asking for. Like, he will be seen as suspicious, and it seems like he doesn't care, and that's why he looks so cool. Chase is excited to tell him exactly what he wants him to hear, and tells Omi he's going to help him stop Jack Spicer. So Omi shows up with Chase Young to take on Jack Spicer. Jack Spicer is really confused, but his evil army is willing to take down Chase Young. And it's so funny because obviously evil is not going to get along with one another because they inherently are selfish and therefore evil on their own rights, but all people that are good are supposedly all in the same bubble. Oh god, this is so weirdly confusing. Jack isn't threatened by Chase at all until Chase brings out his jungle cats. We see the jungle cats transform into medieval warriors to back Chase up, and he's just looking more and more powerful. Every time I see this guy, he's somehow manipulating the world, or like, what is going on in this special? It's just so cool because of all the relationship dynamics we've seen with Omi and Chase Young. Like, you definitely want to see where that friendship goes because they challenge each other. They both have good actions, and that's where they get along. And even if they're on believe different things like good and evil, but they get along because the actions they take are both out of respect for the greater good. And suddenly you see somebody for more than good and evil. It's like, you know, when kids grow up, they think you're either good or you're evil, and certain things get you into that category. And I like that this show, there's going to be a million people with different beliefs all over the place, but like when you stay loyal to yourself, stay true, whether you believe in good, whether you believe in evil. Xiaolin Showdown really built my empathy, and I could feel that. Chase Young takes the yin yo-yo from Jack, switches it out, because apparently he's had the real one this whole time, because they showed us earlier he did, yeah, whatever. And Chase hands the yo-yo to Omi, and specifically not the monks. The monks are not supportive of this plan. They think that they really need to see what they're getting into because the gap in knowledge about the yin-yang yo-yo and both Shen Gong Wu, like, it's just so vague. So they're like, we need to figure this out. But Omi's kind of built a resentment toward his friends and starting to see them as evil and Chase as good, therefore like leaning toward Chase. It's almost like he trusts him a little bit too much. And even in one episode before this, they talk about how they establish trust. Omi says a true warrior acts first and worries later, which is really interesting because it's like, it's not that like that's an objectively like correct thing necessarily, but to me it seems like that's just so where I was at that age. You know, like Omi at his place as a Shaolin warrior, like still making mistakes and having all these firsts. It's a great character flaw to have, like very relatable. Without thinking though, Omi is so concerned with Master Feng, he's like, we need to act now and talk later. The Yin Yang world is this really trippy meta type place where no laws of physics really apply, and it's just kind of this artsy nightmare. And it's really interesting for a kid show because it's very deep, it's very intrinsic, and the music definitely doesn't help. It feels like you're flying. I don't know. Omi returns and Master Feng is pretty much in a coma, in a meditative state, and he can't interact. Omi essentially tells the monks that he feels underappreciated and that while the monks are trying to make up with him, he's essentially like, no, I've given up on you guys. There's only one person that's trusted me, and it was Chase Young. The world cracks. Chase takes Omi under his wing. It's the most dramatic moment in the entire series. And it ends to be continued.
That should be me standing there.
Oh, always the bridesmaid, never the bride.
Get a little recap on everything that happened 20 minutes ago. Chase Young has just recruited Omi to be on the side of evil so that Omi can't defeat him. Chase's manipulative tactic worked. We're gonna have to take a break from the first episode and talk about context. He got Omi to depend on him. He told secrets to Omi. He made Omi feel really special, and he really challenged Omi to be a better warrior, something that he's not getting from his friends. It's almost kind of like a cheating scenario or an abusive scenario, especially with Chase Young essentially grooming Omi into this relationship. It doesn't feel like it's natural. It feels like it to mold him into something he wants. So there's a lot of Chase Young events that have led up to this. So Chase Young has just entered in season 2, episode 11, Master Monk Guan. In short, this episode was about the monks meeting a famous Shaolin warrior that is revealed to have a backstory with Chase Young. It's his introduction episode. He walks in with red eyes as his first time in the series, and he's a very charming guy. Nothing about his actions have seen evil so far. He just seems to be the Prince of Darkness, and that's okay for him. The monks and Chase Young don't really get to connect. It just essentially feels like it might be this monster of the week episode, but this guy is here to stay. Chase Young is a lot more important than we know yet. Then he comes back again in season 2, episode 12, when Jack takes Clay, who is possessed by this evil Habini. He takes him to Chase Young to essentially try to get closer to him, and it's really cute that Jack really wants a relationship with this guy because he's so cold and silent. And then there's moments where Jack actually audibly like disrespects Chase Young. He's like, whoa, why would you do something for somebody else? Like, how are you evil and also doing good things? Like, it's almost like an insult to Jack. Chase Young basically visits Omi for the first time one-on-one. It's actually really cool. Like, it's not just them having a conversation, it's like them like physically altercating. He essentially like vets Omi, and it almost feels like really inappropriate because this is like an older man just coming to talk to a child. One of the first things Chase says is that you have to use your strength against someone.
When fighting an opponent with superior strength, you must use his strength against him.
Why are you teaching me your tricks?
Teaching is the only true path to learning.
Like, why is he taking the time to tell Omi this? It's already red flag. Chase Young is really interesting in comparison to Master Feng because we're kind of confused at how strong Master Feng really is. Like, we know he's a Shaolin warrior, but we don't hear anything about his past. Like, so far we only know Master Monk Guan's past as another Shaolin warrior, and that's just like, it's like weird. Like, why is the main character have the most vague background? Like, Master Feng is almost taking backseat to even Chase Young at this point. For me, it was always like a wonder of like, who is stronger? Like, can Master Feng protect the kids against Chase Young? Like, how much strength do they have against each other? And I like that we don't technically get that close. I mean, we do in Xiaolin Chronicles, but let's not talk about that right now. Chase being so elusive with when he chooses to be violent is just so interesting. Turns out Chase Young's advice actually helps Omi solve the problem of the episode and help his friend Kimiko win a Xiaolin Showdown. Then Chase straight up tells him,
Let's just say I did one small thing for you. One day, maybe you can return the favor.
Insinuating that like he wants something in return. Like, there's something going on and I just really want to know what it is. But I consider that like second episode in the Chase Young saga. There's about like 2 or 3 episodes in between where we don't see Chase and we're back to the normal Xiaolin Showdown hijinks. Feels almost kind of like filler, but you know, the whole show is filler. It's not Naruto. Like, things don't usually carry over in episodes, but right now it's cool that one thing does. Chase comes back for his second really intense episode and actually helps Jack Spicer this time. Basically, Jack is tired of losing to the Shaolin monks like literally all the time. He's so incompetent, and Chase entering the show just makes Jack just completely look like a goofball. Like, Jack was a little threatening before, like he had some plans, like some things worked out, he had a lot of wins, and then suddenly he's in the presence of Chase Young and it's like, oh, this is what actual evil is. The cinematography on Chase Young with the shadow is really cool, and Chase essentially tries to bond with an evil villain because he's only really bonded with Omi, and Omi is a good person. So seeing 2 evil people interact with each other, like still kind of working in each other's best interest, it's so complicated. Chase watches from a distance and he's actually hanging out with Wuya, which is almost kind of random. We never like actually explain why Chase and Wuya are hanging out now. And this is the second episode. Like, the last episode, Wuya was with Jack the whole time. Now suddenly she's just hanging out with Chase Young. It's interesting. The way she like cowers to Chase Young is so funny too, because it's like she's so demanding and dominant with Jack Spicer, but then every time she's around Chase Young, she's just like groveling at his feet, which is so fun to like see a new side of Wuya in that sense. Like, she's such a dynamic character. In the end, it turns out that Chase Young was actually using this entire episode and Jack Spicer as a diversion as he collected the Eagle Scope, and that's how we know something's going down. The 3rd/4th episode he comes in is the New Order. Jack actually overpowers Chase, which is a really interesting premise. To see that Jack can actually put up with Chase for a second. It makes Chase look a little bit weaker, but it's still cool. The entire episode is Jack essentially having all of Chase Young's powers, like what it would be like if Jack had Chase Young's privilege. He literally did one thing right, and now he's running Chase's castle, which is cool because, you know, Jack Spicer always wanted to be the Prince of Darkness. In this episode, it's interesting because Omi almost misses having Chase Young as an enemy, and Jack Spicer is kind of more of a threat because he's just so ignorant. This gets Omi to really start to respect Chase Young because quickly drill Omi about even siding with the villains for a second. Like, they're like, okay, no, both of them are bad, they're bad people, and that's when the seed is planted. That's inevitably brought back in this 3-part special. Omi officially returns Chase Young's favor by freeing him from Jack and going behind the monk's back to actually help Chase. And Chase does another nice thing for Omi by keeping suspicion under wraps.
Hey, how did Chase get out?
What's going on?
Well, you see, I came here to,
Take back the Shen Gong Wu.
what?
I challenge you to a Xiaolin Showdown.
But
I wager the...
And suddenly these two have a secret together. The distance is felt between Omi and the monks, and the seeds are getting planted and planted. And even at the end of the episode, as they leave Chase, Raymundo straightforward confronts Omi and is like, "No, you wouldn't help Chase. It's not like he's a good guy."
Yeah, it's not like you ever did anything for him.
I'm gonna have to go a little bit faster because I can't go through everything. We find out that Chase Young is actually looking to have an apprentice. Like, he wants to be somebody's master, and that's really interesting because of course Jack's gonna want to do that. I never thought of Chase Young as somebody who would train someone, but it's really cool to see him at Master Feng's level. In the end, it turns out that Kat Nappe is the one who gets the apprentice, and she does a bad job just as much as Jack. And then we just see Chase Young for like literally a second where he says,
Oh, is he ready to join us?
Not yet, but soon. He has just tasted evil. In time, he will learn to crave it.
Because you are all my friends. I could never lie to my friends.
he's proud of Omi for learning to lie so much. Like, literally, he tricked Omi into telling his first lie, and then he's watching Omi and grooming him to enjoy lying. Oof, this is dark. Even the comedic scene at the end where they're all playing cards shows that Omi is now officially a liar, which he never was before, and it's just funny to see that character change. Then in the next episode, we see Chase Young actually training Jermaine, one of Omi's old friends, to be a Shaolin monk. It's cool that there's this little side plot of Chase Young trying to get an apprentice or trying to find like somebody that he can trust on the evil side, and it's like he knows it's gonna be Omi, and like, why is he giving Jack Spicer a chance, Kat Nappe? It's like, even Jermaine, like, it's like he's so obsessed with Omi and he gets closer to the people that are closer to him, and it's creepy. In the end, Chase Young is kind of smirking about this whole situation and is like, how do you know this didn't go exactly as I planned? I'm like, come on, Chase, this can't, what, you couldn't have planned something that specific. Dangerous Minds, the episode right before this 3-part special, is the 6th episode of the Chase Young saga, and it officially is taken up a notch. The events of this 3-part episode are suddenly really apparent in this episode. Like, we get a scene or two in every one that is leading to us believing that Chase Young is trying to teach Omi to be a certain way, but it's a real turning point now for a problem. Basically, the world is going to end and good and evil have to work together to save the world so that way they could be, you know, like, it's the one time that everybody's on the same page and has the same goal, which is really fun because then we see Omi and Chase Young bonding in a way that is so inappropriate. And they have the boundary of their belief system taken out of this. Like, they both believe they should save the world. Like, neither of them are believing in good or evil. They're just believing they have to save the world, which gives them a chance to get so close. And then Omi feels so connected to Chase Young. It's like Chase Young is just controlling him completely.
You really should be more careful who you trust.
That seems only to be a problem when I trust you.
Chase and Omi have a moment alone where Chase actually suggests the solution to the problem by combining the Eagle Scope and the Fountain of Wei. And if you remember the Eagle Scope, Chase basically helped Jack attack the temple, and in return, the distraction allowed him to get the Eagle Scope. So this is actually a part of Chase's plan, and that was like a really small detail of it. Here, when he tells Omi he has the Eagle Scope, Omi is immediately like, oh, I have the Fountain of Wei. And next thing you know, yep, they have to work one-on-one together. They bond so well, and it's so stressful. The one main important thing you need to take away from this episode, besides the Eagle Scope,
You must give your word as a Shaolin warrior only to look for a way to destroy the spiders, and not evil.
Chase Young essentially tells Omi that he will see the secret to destroying evil, and that he cannot go through it with Omi unless Omi promises not to tell anyone. Ooh, and that's when it gets really intense, bringing us essentially to... Now this one's really interesting because we get to see full-on evil Omi. Yeah, like, it's uncomfortable. The wardrobe, it's cool, but it's uncomfortable to say the least. He's a little more scrappier, kind of like Scrappy-Doo, and just essentially wants to fight. Like, evil Omi there doesn't seem to be a side of Omi that is realistically a selfish person or inherently wanting to do bad things. So when he lost his good self and began to work with Chase stops him and basically asks him to swear his loyalty to him. Omi doesn't think about it, he just does.
You must swear to me your loyalty.
I do swear my loyalty to you. Now can we fight?
And suddenly he is completely controlled by Chase Young, and in such a convoluted way that it wasn't just taking a Shen Gong Wu, putting it on, and controlling Omi. No, it's deeper than that. Like, he formed a relationship with Omi. He got Omi to trust him. He separated Omi from his friends and family and actually got him to be his apprentice. Chase even says Shen Gong Wu is a clutch for true power. He literally always just blatantly says his plans, and it makes it all the more haunting. But yeah, after they figure out that Chase did this entire plan, they put the pieces together and they know exactly what he's up to. He's tricked Omi, and Omi is not genuinely evil. In a confrontation where Omi, Chase, and all the cat warriors show up at the temple, it is so intense. The skies are dark and red, and Omi is ready to fight his friends. They try to tell him that something's wrong, and they know exactly what Chase is up to, but Omi is just so angry and ready to fight. I wish there was a little more intention from Omi. Like, he just seems so off his rails right now. Like, it doesn't feel like he's making genuine choices. He just became like such a completely different person. It's so disorienting to see Omi like this. It's kind of like unrealistic because it just feels like he's mind controlled. Remember earlier when the monks were mad at Dojo because he wasn't telling them who was going to be a Wudai warrior from Master Feng, and then they randomly ended up hurt out of nowhere? And we saw Chase for like a brief second, but now we're finally getting that moment explained to us. We see like footage of Chase actually being the one to kidnap Master Feng and attack the monks, and then in the end put on the Wushan Geyser, which erases people's memory, and suddenly like the monks are just completely... We get another twist. Oh my god, this is so tiring. When we see that Wuya is actually brought back to her body. Chase is officially, even when it's revealed that he took away her powers that made her so evil before. So there's now a lot more villains going around. And it's interesting to see how powerful Chase really is, because last season, Wuya was super powerful. She took over the entire world. Like, they were not going to stop her. And Chase Young just suddenly took off her powers just like that. I love it when, like, more challenging enemy coming in to replace the old enemy and showing their interaction to see how better the new one is compared to the old one, and then you're like, as an audience member, you're like a lot more worried about the Shaolin monks and stuff. Like, I feel like that's interesting. The Shaolin monks aren't ready to give up yet. They head over to Chase Young's lair, where they straightforward are just planning to steal the Yin Yo-Yo. Like, they're just so worried about Omi, which is so fair. They're acting now and worrying later. We get to see the Sweet Baby Among Us, which is a really cool Shen Gong Wu, and is only used twice in the entire series. When they finally break into the lair, they have a quick confrontation with Omi yet again, not just at the temple, but now here at Chase's lair. Jack Spicer, Chase Young, and Omi are now facing off against the monks. But the monks actually steal the Yin Yo-Yo and jump into the Yin Yang world, accidentally also taking Jack with him. In order to not have evil take over themselves when leaving the yin yang world, like what happened to Omi, they realize that they need to find the yang yo-yo, its sister Shen Gong Wu, and when the two are combined, basically, you don't have to lose a part of yourself, like lose the evil side or the good side. Oh god, how did the writers come up with this? Turns out to be in Dojo's ear, which is like, I don't know if it's just in the yin yang world that it's in Dojo's ear, or it was always there before. They could have done this earlier, but I don't know.
So the chi bottles are set up like a supermarket of sorts, and the monks actually go in to find Omi, Master Feng, and their chi, because apparently that will restore them. With the guiding Omi head, they finally find the bottles.
They escape the yin-yang world with Omi's chi, and Omi is giving them one last fight. We finally see Omi at the peak, like the scariest he ever could be. Like, he really wants to be a good Shaolin warrior, and then suddenly we're watching him be the fiercest villain. Like, it's just so interesting to see how he translates. And he even holds up blades, and he's like basically about to kill his friends. Like, it does not get any darker than this in a lot of TV shows. They restore Omi's goodness, or good chi, I don't really know how to address it, and he makes up with the Shaolin monks. Basically, like, they're all making up, everything's gonna be good now, everything's okay, until Chase Young reveals that Omi swore his loyalty to him. Oh my god, Chase. Okay, this one feels kind of like a cheap shot compared to the bigger plan. I love that we got this fight and everything leading up to it, but this is when it starts to get a little iffy for me. Omi admits that being good comes with staying true to your word, and he has to be evil because that would make him good, and it's confusing. Basically, Omi returns back to Chase, and the monks have to escape. I love that there's no easy way out ever in Xiaolin Showdown, because that is right when the episode ends. That's when it's time to cross into Xiaolin Showdown Season 3, one of my favorite seasons in all of television. We're basically taken from where we left off, and the entire world is plunged into 1,000 years of darkness. Like, this one thing that they've built up the entire show would be the worst possible case scenario, and it is happening. And not only that, Omi is on the wrong side of it. Now we see Omi as now one of his cat warriors have more of a conscience and be more mortified at what Chase is doing. He gets to see this side of Chase that's like never been seen before. Like, it's very clear that Omi was only exposed to the best sides of him on purpose. Like, Chase built this persona, he built his entire being around seeming good to get Omi's respect. And now that he has Omi under his control, he is just not afraid to be the bad person he always has been. And it's like, wow, like, this is the person we've heard about all along. Like, this is Chase Young at his peak. Like, he's always been kind of this, like, elusive, like, to himself villain. And now we see him at ultimate power, and he is the strongest. Like, he's stronger than Jack, he's stronger than Master Feng. We see him hurt everyone, and it's scary. We learn that there's a chi monster lurking about, because apparently when the monks left the yin yang world, this monster must have followed them.
Chase decides to stir the pot by actually releasing the chi monster from where the monks had trapped it, only to make the situation much worse. One by one, the chi monster attacks all the monks in this horror sequence that I swear, it's never been this scary in Xiaolin Showdown before.
I forgot to mention this, but Jack's good, so he's just in a high-spirited mood, and he's really annoying to all the monks, and Dojo especially, but, like, it's just a really funny bit. He even has, like, this speech before he's going to sacrifice himself for all the monks.
I know when I return, I won't miss being good. But I wish I would. Oh, yes. Please try to remember me for how I am.
And it makes you look at, like, the normal evil Jack is like, wow, like, maybe they're not so different. This Jack runs into the yin-yang world to sacrifice himself.
After Jack completes the mission, he comes through the yin-yang portal only to be evil again, but just in time for Dojo to pull the chi from him. They lock him in the Sphere of Yoon, and then Dojo goes back to Chase Young's palace. Here we see all the monks hypnotized to be servants for Chase Young. Dojo starts to bring back each monk one by one.
They restore the monks, and the monks challenge Chase for something bigger than Shen Gong Wu. Like, they could never get Chase's attention before, but they say that they're going to play for the only thing Chase would actually accept.
Our eternal loyalty.
A cool condition is that Omi, as a cat, gets to fight alongside his Shaolin warriors, and this could be the last time they fight together. The stakes have never been higher. Oof, guys, that is an intense bet. In the most intense Xiaolin Showdown thus far, we get a soccer ball dojo and a Xiaolin versus Xiaolin Showdown. This 3-part episode is coming to a complete climax as not only Chase is at his peak, but Omi is at his lowest, and they're going to make one final bet.
Omi manages to outsmart Chase by using his infamous awkwardly titled techniques to defeat him in his own game. I forgot to mention how impactful Reverse the Monkey is. You know, we have Sparrow eating hot dogs, we have all these really weird named martial arts moves, and one of the things that connected Omi and Chase was the teaching of Reverse the Monkey, which Master Feng never taught him.
Monkey strike!
Repulse the monkey!
Repulse the monkey!
You learned well from our last encounter.
Repulse the monkey!
Repulse the monkey? Where did you learn repulse the monkey?
Just something my master taught me.
But it's finally being back full circle as Omi confuses Chase in this one final showdown with his own methods.
Completely defeated, and it's so interesting how it wasn't like when Wuya was defeated, like the world kind of became beautiful again. Like, this is just a really subtle loss for him.
There's a really impactful conversation Chase and Omi have that kind of conclude the entire special, where Omi tells Chase that the good in him may be stronger than he knows. And I think it's clear to the audience that Chase is finally given up on this case, which is very well deserved. This is built up for like 7-8 episodes now, and it's finally ready to come to a close. And seeing Chase so bitter is just very rewarding. He doesn't really get his comeuppance, and things don't really go wrong for him ever. But to see him break, you know, the thing that he was so sure of himself with, like this whole plan with Omi, finally come to a conclusion.
I am not worthy to be a Shaolin monk.
I wouldn't be so sure.
It's finally revealed that Chase Young actually held the reversing mirror way back when Omi and Chase were working together, because Chase never really trusted Omi, which is a really intense reveal. It kind of shines a light on the fact that Chase is inherently selfish and was never intending to stick by his word, unlike Omi, who always has done that. And Omi was the good one in that relationship as to not turn his back on another person, unlike Chase, who definitely did that. Omi really respects that Chase opened up to him about this, and it was kind of their last interaction. And
we finally end the 3-part special back on a cheerful note, like it was in the first 4 minutes of this 3-part special. I wish we got a little bit more comedy throughout it, but you know, we couldn't. Master Feng reveals that them as a team, learning to work as one, is what make them Wudai warrior materials, and promotes all of them at once. Okay, phew, yeah, like a lot of things just happened. I feel glad that we didn't have to add more to that, Master Feng. Resolves nicely, we don't have to worry about any more tension between the monks. I don't know, overall this is just, it's a very interesting 3-part episode. And they just do such an impressive job at like spending 2 minutes an episode to lead up to this big season finale. Like, I don't see a lot of shows do something like that. I wonder when these shows aired. Okay, so Judging Omi and Saving Omi apparently came out as 2 new episodes on the same night on May 21st, 2005. So there wasn't a wait between the first 2-part episodes. Wow, this must have been like a really big cliffhanger, because it did not come back until September 17th, 2005. That's like 3 months. I mean, it's a normal like season act break, but for cartoons, it's never usually that serious. But the fact that they made people wait, like, I was probably too young to care. Like, I saw all of these episodes as I was growing up, like, a couple years later. But when these were actually being revealed, I wonder if anybody was, like, super into following them. If any of you guys were and liked this show, please let me know. The scene where the monks are lost in the forest and running away from the chi monster was always something that chilled me when I was a kid. Like, I thought that was so interesting because, you know, like, this big mistake they made is coming back to haunt them at probably the worst time. Like, it's like everything and everybody are against the monks and decide of good, actually. They're really good at balancing an ensemble cast. Like, Omi is kind of the main character, but so is kind of Raimundo, kind of Kimiko, Clay. Like, everybody, like, is doing something that really pushes the plot forward, which is cool for an action show. So it's like Chase sees the evil in what's good, Omi sees the good in what's evil, and that alone is power. And that is such a interesting theme to talk about in a kid's show. I think the most people watching this when it came out in 2005 were between the ages of 9 and 11, which is so young. Like, think about that. That's like being in 4th and 5th grade and watching all these moral lessons. Looking back, I can't tell if I was like learning something or being entertained. And what is the difference? You know what? Let's not go down that rabbit hole. Good and evil, and then evil and good. It's like such a real life scenario. Like, it really preps me to understand how people are when they're different than me. Like how I don't always relate to somebody with something, or me and another person believe completely different things, but we probably have one thing in common, and it's probably something like really beautiful, something really meaningful. And I can see the good in the evil, and somebody can see the good in my evil. It's like, wow, like that is, it's told in such an inadvertent way where it's like not, or, you know, like they could have had an episode that's like, oh, you have to be good, evil. Like they didn't need to, they just told a really good story. And yeah, that's why Xiaolin Showdown, Judging, Saving, and Finding Omi is the best 3-part episode of television ever. I mean, I guess that's kind of a broad statement, but I want to say that is the peak of Xiaolin Showdown. If we had to sum up Xiaolin Showdown as its best self, like, you have to watch this 3-part episode. I want to do more videos like this, like maybe with Hannah Montana, where I break down these longer episodes and actually do a full retrospective on them, but I want to kind of know what you guys think.
But I'm curious what you guys think. Should I make more of these long-form episodes, some of the really short-form ones, or just another one entirely? Don't forget to like and subscribe to Johnny 2000s, and for all your 2000s content, don't forget to come on back.